Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. A new port alternative, the third on the table and this time tailored exclusively to emerging black junior coal miners, is under discussion. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, this proposal was put on the table at the IHS McCloskey South African Coal Exports Conference. Can you tell us about it?
Everybody's brewing the emerging black coal junior, and it all stems from Eskom, because they set out a couple of months back saying that a significant quantity of their coal must, in future, come from companies not that are 26% BEE, but have a 50% plus one share black control. And then since then there's been a scramble, because this coincided with a lot of foreign investors wanting to withdraw from the country for all sorts of funding reasons. You know, they might have been listed in Australia, they might have been listed in Canada, they've been doing a lot of drilling here, but their shareholders have lost the appetite for South Africa and lost the appetite for mining, and they can't raise additional capital, so they're offering these for sale. And of course that's creating a opportunity for anyone who wants to get into the junior mining space, particularly emerging black controlled juniors with a 50% plus one share. Transnet now is sort of rolling out the red carpet for these guys. And you think, well, what has Eskom got to do with exporting coal? Well, the story of South African coal is that its business plan is that you supply the domestic market with your low grade, and you take your high grade and you export it. And if you don't do that, you don't have a business. So that is why Eskom, you'll see soon, will be inviting proposals for its own allocation. Because going back with Eskom, for some reason, it was decided a couple of decades back that they had so much electricity here, they should go into Africa. And at that stage, they got an allocation at the ports of 3 million tons. So now they're going to offer this to these juniors. We've got 3 million tons, who wants to take it? And this will leverage your business of supplying us with coal. Transnet, they are a little bit under strain with RBCT, which is the Richards Bay Coal Terminal, which is really made for the super majors. You know, it's always been for the Anglo-Americans of this world, for the BHP Billitons of this world, and now Exxaro, and for Glencore, was Xstrata before. And so they've been maybe a little bit slow with accommodating the juniors, although there is the Quattro scheme there, where it takes up about 4 grades and not a huge volume, but does give an outlet to more than 20 juniors. But Transnet, which is the rail authority, they thought, no, look, man, we need another port here because there could be a lot more capacity. So they were talking about a greenfield project, which means it's going to be expensive, from scratch. And they were talking about 32 million tons. But then along came a newcomer at this Cape Town conference. Out of the blue comes RBT Grindrod. And we know that Grindrod is doing very well in Maputo. They're putting quite a lot of coal through there. And they now see an opportunity to set up a new port, a new idea, but it will be brownfield because they've got ground there. And it will be a port for the junior mining, for particularly the emerging black junior coal king, coming through there. They say they know exactly how, this should work, that instead of going through RBCT, we'll give you first 3 million tons and we'll go up to 20 million tons here. And so that's the latest one on the table. But the interesting part of it is that they want inland ports because, when you look at Richards Bay Coal Terminal, it's a complex outfit. They deal with 38 different grades of coal. We think coal is coal. And they've got 91 stockpiles. And, on those stockpiles, they can put in 8 billion, tons of coal. So it's a huge story there. These guys say, no, what they will do is have inland ports. So the juniors will report to these ports with their coal, deliver the coal there. It will then be processed before they put it on the trains, you see. So it's a new thinking process. But the long and the short of it is that this must work for South Africa. South Africa must benefit. And I think maybe they do need a bit of an oversight, seeing it as a mixture of state and private. We have the great efficiency of RBCT, it's a private owned port. and you've got Transnet, which has been lagging but catching up and doing better, maybe there should be some independent party that looks at this to see what is in South Africa's best interests, because one would hate to see tension build up. That would be bad for South Africa, because when you look at these exports, they're important. These are real exports. These, if you take iron ore and coal, this accounts for 40% of our exports. Now, if we want to continue buying flashy cars that are imported and cell phones, we need these exports.
Yeah.
And we can see they're not working well. And some of the complaints there at this conference, you'd have a French guy standing up and foreigners standing up and say, hey, South Africa, what's happening to you? You guys are slipping, RBCT used to be the benchmark. I used to reference all my coal business off the prices coming out of Richards Bay Coal Terminal. But what do you want to? You're just a little swing producer now. What is your ambition? Surely. And they were sort of saying to them, get yourself geared up, because Indonesia is faltering a bit. India's demand is growing. You're beautifully positioned. You can become the number one supplier again. And I hope the penny dropped.
Yeah. Now, Richards Bay Coal Terminal has grown exponentially over the years, but the rail capacity hasn't.
That's the thing, you see. So you've got private sector growing. You've got state not growing. Now, the state, it shouldn't be sabotaging its own economy. Otherwise, if it's too hot, it must get out of the way. They now, under Brian Molefe, wow, they've been going hammer, really doing well, and hit that 70.2 million tons, or over 70 million tons, and going for 81 million tons. But, the Richards Bay Coal Terminal, 91 million tons. So, hey, where's that? They must really move, they must ramp up for the good of South Africa. We've got a weak rand. You don't want the state contributing to a weak rand situation. They must be efficient, they must get their capacity up, they must come through Swaziland, they must come from every direction they need to make sure that we get the best out of these assets that we have, and that you've got a port which doesn't sit there with overcapacity. That's also inefficient. Richards Bay Coal Terminal is saying, look, we've got a ready-made situation here. Get us to the 91 million tons. Then we will give another, get us to the 91 million tons, and we will then give another 19 million to the emerging black coal Julias, which makes the most economic sense. But I think people are a little bit afraid of all the eggs being in the one basket there. They're looking for an alternative. So maybe with Grindrod, private sector efficiency coming in there, Transnet might decide, look, we're going to feed both of these. But they've got to feed both fairly.
Yes.
Otherwise South Africa is going to suffer.
And with talking about the inland ports, you can't have the stuff stockpiling there without any way of getting out.
Well, I think, you can see the look in their eyes. Transnet are going to help those juniors. We know that there has been a little bit of tic-tacking, and we know that they even confessed that they nearly came to physical blows, which doesn't sound good for South Africa, between BHP Billiton and Transnet. That we don't want. That we can do without. The individual egos, they must disappear. South Africa is number one. They must make sure that they serve all parties here. They cannot discriminate against any one of them as a state-owned enterprise. They've got to serve the nation. And if there is that demand out there, they must make sure that they can match, if not exceed, the ports. They should be getting ahead as a state-owned organization. They should be getting ahead because they want to push the private sector forward so that the economy of South Africa can benefit.
So what do you think the future outlook is?
The future outlook, I think, is good. I think the way they do these discussions, you might say, look, it's negative to do them in public, and they should be doing them in private because it gets some scary headlines. I think getting the scary headlines actually helps.
I think so too.
Because in actual fact, then they sit down and other people come around and say, look, there's huge potential here. Places like the Reserve Bank are needing a situation where there's not inflation. We can't have this weak currency. If we export at the right pace, we won't add to the weak currency problems. I know there are emerging market situations and things like that, but let's not shoot ourselves in the foot. And got to get the labour right, got to get the social and political stability going. I get the sense it's happening. I get the sense that we will be entering a new phase, and particularly with legislation. You know, Minister Shabangu, you know, she was quite adamant that everything that before she's counting her days, she says, because she's not going to be a minister for much longer. I presume she'll go towards the election. I don't know. She wants to get all the legislative and regulatory ducks in a row. Now, we've been waiting for this for a long time. You know, her predecessors have promised streamlining. She's promised streamlining, but she said, look, as I sit here in Cape Town, the portfolio committees of my mineral resources, environment, water affairs, they're sitting there. They're going through everything, clause by clause. We're going to streamline this so that when you apply for a mineral right, you will also apply for environmental clearance and whether there's water or not in one go. So you won't do them separately. This will be a very big thing. And she said, not only that, but we will do this within 300 days max. So they've given themselves a deadline at last. Because there still isn't any deadline on the water licensing. You know, there's a lot of mining activity going on. They haven't got water licenses. It's ridiculous. And water is a huge thing, this coal. And they're encouraging people to use much less water, which I think they will do. I think that out of all the noise is going to come some streamlining that should help our economy.
Well, thank you very much,
It's a
Martin.
great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.